Good morning, everyone. My name is Luis Baez, and I want to thank you, everyone, for today's time that you're dedicating to receiving this demo that we prepared for the Department of State. The demo is to automate the invoice approval process for the Office of the Chief of Protocol, which they currently perform on a manual basis mostly. Before we begin showing what we have built as a prototype, I would like to discuss the requirements that have been communicated to us. The first element that I want to demonstrate here is the form that was provided to us that is currently being used. The first thing that we see is different departments. This is very important because the departments define the workflow first stage, for example. So depending on the department chosen, the division chief will be different. And the other elements that are here are submitter, which is the internal person that receives the invoice from the vendor and submits it in the portal. We have the event purpose and other fields that were provided to us in this form. Recently, about a day ago, Levita communicated to us that she also would like to have the attendees list to be included in the electronic form. So that's something that you will see incorporated in the demo that we'll be providing you. Other fields as required in this form were implemented as well. Also, particularly the name of vendor, I want to stop here for a second. One requirement that was given to us was that the submitter should be able to select from a list of vendors that the Department of State has. But if it's not already in the list, they should have a capability to add it on the fly. So we have incorporated that as well. Additionally, we have some file attachment fields here. In our portal, you'll see we'll have one attachment field that allows for multiple attachments. So you don't have to be limited to 3. Another element of the form is basically all the different approval stages. After the submission stage, we have the system chief of protocol, we have the executive director, chief of staff, and budget analyst, which are the different stages in the workflow for final approval. And they all require signature and date. We have converted those signature and dates to date timestamps to document when those approvals were made. So I don't think I have anything else to show you at this point in terms of requirements, but I will be discussing different elements that we have implemented through to the prototype throughout our demo. So I'm going to show you first the demo environment. We have created the different roles that are required under this prototype, which is the submitter. You will see where we are in terms of which profile we're in the upper right-hand corner right here. In this case, this is the submitter. When this is fully implemented, this will show the name of the person who's logged in. We just created generic names to facilitate the demonstration. And we also created different tabs here for all the roles that we're going to be demoing. So for example, then we have the division approval. After that, we have the executive approval. Then we have the chief of staff approval. And finally, we have the budget analyst approval. This is a little bit more robust, a screen that has graphs and other elements that are very useful for analyzing the activity. Other users can have access to this type of interface. We just designed for the demo different flavors so you can see what are the capabilities of the system. So if we start at the submitter level, we're going to create a new invoice. So as you see here, we have the submit invoice button, which we'll click at the end. The system automatically brings the submitted by person. We just created a sample generic name, SAM submitter. Here we start entering the information required by all the fields that were in the form. I will stop in different fields that require particular attention, but I will just enter information, sample information, just for the purpose of this demo on these fields. We're going to put sample event purpose, service date. Let's assume I'm going to move the calendar screen that was open on another monitor. So let's say that this was provided last week. We can put the sample description of service. Amount spent, let's say it's 1,343. Number of guests, let's say it's 123. So the attendance list is the particular field that I mentioned that was recently added to the requirements. Here we can click on a button to search for attached fields. Let's look for a folder that I created for this demo. It's demo Department of State. So we have the attendees list here. I'm going to open it and finish attaching that file. You can look at what you have entered here by going to the downloads after you click on that, depending on which browser you have. So this is just a sample attendees list that I created to attach. Amount budgeted, let's say it was 1,500, so we're under budget. Sample justification, and let's do invoice number TST 2019 January 11, and then put A in case we do more than one transactions in this demo. So in the dates here, we're gonna say we received the invoice today, and it's due. Normally it's due in 30 days, but let's just assume that for now. So here in the vendor, as I mentioned, we can choose an existing company from the list of vendors. So we've created a few test companies and put in the address, but we can also create a new company, and we're going to do that for the purposes of this demo. We're going to put test company, and we're going to put today's date as the name of the company, and then put some address, sample address, Main Street, test address line 2, city is Washington, 209, and then we'll choose the state. And again, I can add more fields or eliminate some fields that are not required. Once we entered all the information for create the company, we click on this button. The system will go create the company, and it will attach it to this particular record, as you see here, and now it has been chosen. And you can also change it here if needed, but we're going to keep the one that we just created. Once we finish that, we can see how the different departments and divisions are created in terms of the approval. So this user belongs to Department ID 2, which is the A&B Rep Funds, and has this, that division has been defined as having this workflow: Dave Division, Eric Executive, Charles Chief, and Bridget Budget. Again, these are just sample names for workflow, for prototype purposes, but once this is live, we'll just create accounts for all the different roles, and they will have their own emails, not just these sample ones over here. This field, approved by division chief, and all of these here in the right hand corner will be populated as their approvals come in. It will show the date timestamp of when they have clicked the approval button. So we're just going to go ahead at this point and click submit invoice. And one of the things that happens is that the system automatically alerts the next level in the approval process that there's an invoice for them to approve. And I will show you that. I programmed it to also copy my personal email and that email that gets sent. So I'll show you how that looks. I also want to show you how the submitters can go see their invoices. Here we have created safe searches for the different stages. So if I want to see, if I'm a submitter, I want to see which of the invoices that I have submitted in the chief of staff approval. I can just click that. Again, this is just sample data that I've imported into the system for the demo purposes. So we have created these safe searches to facilitate navigation through the system. So if I'm a submitter and I want to see what's in the stage of division chief approval, I can click here, and as you can see, the invoice number that we created is already there. We can also filter by any other workflow state to see the status. So this facilitates, getting around the system. We can, if there's more than one page, we just navigate through the pages. So once that invoice gets approved, the next stage in the process is the division approval. The division approval interface is very similar to the submitter interface. They just don't get to create invoices. They have access to the View My Invoices link. If they go in there, they will see everything that they need to be approving. And as you might expect, the invoice that we just created is here. So we're going to click on Edit. The division chief can see everything that has been submitted or entered by the submitter, all the information, the vendor, and once he feels satisfied with the transaction, he can click approve. Once he approves, the workflow state automatically changes to the next level, which is executive director. And as I said, like if they want to know how many things they need to approve or is in their role, they will go to division chief approval, and he knows that he needs to go to all these and approve them. It is not until nothing's here that his work is done. So we're going to just show all records again, and we're going to move into the next stage, which is the executive approval. Again, only access to view the invoices, not to create. We go to the invoice approval workflow system view of the records that are under the chief, the executive state, sorry. And as you can see, the same invoices here. So we're gonna edit that record, look at the information, and once satisfied, we'll click approve. That automatically is removed from this executive director approval state view. So if you want to see it again, we just go to show all records, and here it is. And now it's on the chief of staff approval level. That is this tab over here. If you see here, this user is chief. You go to view my invoices, edit, and approve. Very repetitive in those in between stages for workflow. We have an approval a button. We haven't programmed the cancellation or the rerouting of that invoice. We just wanted to build a prototype so that you get a sense of how user-friendly and intuitive the platform is before we delve into those other routes that are not the traditional ones. So as you can see, the workflow state now is budget analyst approval. If we go to the budget analyst dashboard, this is where the budget analyst has a broader view of what's going on. We created 3 graphs and an approval list for transactions that are on the budget analyst approval only, so that the budget analyst only has a view of what they need to approve. They can always go to the invoice list and see everything, and I'll show you that after we finish discussing the elements in this dashboard. For example, I created a graph called the spent by month graph. If you go and click on that graph, the system shows an expanded view of that graph, which I'm going to bring in now. So this is the expanded view of the graph, where you can see the amount that has been spent by month for October, November, December, and January 19th. And as I said, these are just sample data that we have imported into the system. One really useful feature of the system is that I can have a report of where those numbers come from. So you can see all the list of the transactions that compose those totals, and even you have a link to those particular records. So for example, if we move here to January, we can see the different invoices that comprise those numbers. For example, this one is the one that we've been working on. Once I click, we can go here and see the transaction per se with all their approvals. I want to note here particularly the different date timestamps that have been recorded in the system. So as soon as someone clicks on the approval button, the system date timestamps that approval with a particular date and time where that happened. So you get full auditability of what happened to the record. Other things you can do is see the data in text for those who would prefer it in that format, and as well as a downloadable Excel file, which you can open in Excel to see the details of where the numbers come from. So Excel is opening. I'm gonna show you right now, as soon as it opens, what the system generates. So we have two tabs, the summarized amounts by month, which are shown in the graphs, and also the data that we just saw by different with all the different stages and invoice dates and other fields that were created. I'm gonna close out of here. The other graph that we created for demo purposes is what was spent by department. If we click here, we get an expanded view, and we can see that donations have been $88,000, official gifts $56,000, and so forth. We have a legend at the bottom, and as well we have the different reports that have the list of the transactions that we've seen before, and all the other tabs that have pretty much the same information that I showed you for the spent by month graph. As I said, these are just sample graphs that I created for the demo. I try to vary them. One is a bar chart, one's a pie chart. The one that I'm going to show you now is a funnel chart. But there are many other formats that we can incorporate in this dashboard. And we can include more than 3, or we can just leave 2. It's just a matter of your preference. So the funnel chart is basically a funnel view of the status. So we can see that 22 are under the division of chief approval, 14 are executive director approval, and 13 are chief of staff approval, and 10 are under budget analyst approval. I eliminated the paid stage, which is the last one after the budget analyst. For obvious reasons, it will just be too many, because eventually all of them will lead to that status. These are more like the active status one, but if desired, we can incorporate the paid status as well. So as I mentioned, if the department, if the budget analyst wants to see all the invoices, not just the ones that she needs to review, and anytime that she needs to refresh, she just clicks here. We can go here to invoices, and everything that she needs to see is here, and she knows that there's 76 records found, and she can browse through all the pages. She can also sort on any of these column headings to order them in alphabetical order. Any of the other users in the other interfaces can do that as well. We're gonna go and basically sort it by ID, and here's the record that she needs to approve. One thing that's very important that was that we noted in the requirements given to us is that once, if it's not in the stage that you need to approve, you shouldn't have access to edit the record, just view it. And I'm just gonna go back before I approve this to show that functionality. So we're back at the chief, and as I, following with the same example, budget analyst approval for this invoice. If I click edit, the system will tell me you have permissions to view but not edit this record. So keep in mind that we can have that segregation of duties and ensure that the system does not allow any edit from any user that it's not supposed to be editing the record at that time. So I am going to basically open this record as the budget analyst, and now the button says pay invoice. So we're just going to click on pay invoice. And different from other states that transition from, let's say, the division chief to the executive, which is only a workflow state change. This one at this point is also creating the invoice review form that was provided to us as a sample. It's creating a PDF version of it with all the information that has been entered for this record. And this is very important because one of the requirements was that the budget analyst has monthly or periodic reporting requirements that need that form to be filled out. So we didn't want to just be fully the information to be fully here in the system, but we also wanted to create some the invoice review form in PDF format so that they can be transmitted to whoever needs that information. So if you see here, for this invoice that we've been working on, here's the invoice that was created. So we're going to click on that. System set it downloaded. So let's open it. And here it is. So the submitter, SAM submitter, sample event, all the sample information that we entered, the number of guests, and all of that information. And we can also see what was attached to the record. In this case, it was the invoice review form, or any other attachment that was added can be also included here, so that whoever sees this document knows that those files are attached. And as well, we have all the different division approvals with the date timestamp that you saw already in the electronic document. If you see the budget analyst approved by 7:17 a.m. and the test company is there and all of that. So we basically populated the information with in the electronic record into this form that was provided to us, and we recreated. Well, something very important to note is that these records need to be exported somehow to report or submit to someone else. So the budget analyst can say, well, I'm just going to choose these records and I am going to export them. In this case, the export wizard appears very intuitive. Local hard drive is the best way for this particular purpose. We're going to click on next, and we want an Excel spreadsheet format. That's good. And then in the options, we just want to select we just want to export the selected records, which were just 4 that I selected, but other options exist to select all records, for example, or any a search that you want to automate. Here there are different searches that you can configure so that you just select that search, and it will limit the population of records you want to export. But in this case, we're just going to export the selected ones. We want to export the labels so that whenever we open the Excel, we know what the data we're looking at. Include attached files, definitely. That's one of the most important things that we need. And in the fields, there are various fields that we've created for this demo, but only certain ones are being viewed in the screens because they're the only ones that are relevant. So we're just going to click that summary view that we created, which limits the export files, or the export columns to certain ones only, which are the ones that you're seeing in the view screens. Once we have that, we click finish. The system goes and executes that export job. And once it's done, we get a link to download the exported file. So we click here. We're going to save the file. Once we save the file, we can come here to the demo zip file created, which is this one. And there's two files. One is the demo KB with the date timestamp, and that includes the data per se, not the files. We'll see how that opens. So as you see, we have the 4 records that we exported along with all the information, and we can see the invoice review form name also there. But if you want to access to the file itself, you go to the files folder, and there they are. You can enter them. So for example, the demo that we did was this one, and here it is again. And we already saw this, but I just wanted to show you how easy it is to export these transactions that are within the system, so that you can transmit it to other parties that need that information. And from my part, I think I'm done with the demo. I believe we covered everything that was needed, at least to provide a prototype of a working prototype of the concept that you guys, that Department of State needs to cover. We can definitely incorporate new requirements very easily, as we just did with the ones that we showed you. I hope that you enjoyed this demo, and we look forward to continuing our conversations and to see how we can move this system to a live production state. Thank you very much, and have a great day.